So, if you are talking about multiple uh, attributes, so that means you will have more than one attribute. Then, what are the associated parameter you can have to describe all these? Anyone? So, you are having various multiple. So, definitely you need a parameter in order to explain the corresponding linear or whether it is a linear model or nonlinear model. Then tell me what are the parameters associated with this one? Anyone? Suppose you are having n number of observation or n number of attribute or what you call it observation or attribute both are same. Whatever you want to observe, whether it is a response or attribute. If you are observing, then you can give a common name to that. That one is we are calling it observation. So simply observation we are calling it. We are having n number of observation. Then tell me what are the parameter for this uh, set n number of uh, random variable, and through which concept we try to express it, because you have already gone through math 1, and also you have already gone through what probability and random course. ECA student, they have already gone through probability and random course, random process. So definitely what you do, if you are dealing with n number of observation in together, then what is the best idea to proceed with? Anyone? What is meaning of that you are taking n number of observation in together? Anyone would like to comment anything? No idea. Okay, fine. So here I am talking x1 is first observation, x2 is second observation, x3 is uh, third observation, and xn is nth observation. So by default there is a proper sequencing. So you can put it all these observation in the sequence form. First criteria, that means either you are dealing with n number of observation in together, jointly or in together, or you can parallelly define a sequence. So sequence and both n number of observation in together, both are having same kind of characterization. So that's way what we do, always we go for some compact kind of notation. So in place of dealing with these individual n number of observation, we can put that in the form of sequence. So we are having a sequence, it is a finite sequence with n component, and simply we can say that what is z, what is name of z? Now we will call it parallelly. In place of dealing with n number of observation, what I have given a common name or a single name that we denote it by a finite sequence of length n, z. Then what is name of z? Anyone? What is the name of z? And because you have already gone through linear algebra, so I will put here transpose. There will be no issue if you are putting transpose, because the content is not going to change, it would be the same. So transpose is having meaning that whenever in linear algebra several times I told that whenever you are proceeding with a vector is what? It is one kind of array representation of many things which happens together. Okay, so we are putting those things together in from the perspective of what compact calculation. Calculation would be very simple if you proceed with that compact representation as a vector. So here z is a vector, and in linear algebra from the calculus point of view, always we consider, whenever someone is saying that we are having n dimensional vector, then always we consider that vector as a column vector. So that's what transpose I have taken here. So best way to proceed with a vector, always proceed with column vector. If nothing is mentioned there, then by default consider that vector as a column vector. So I have given here transpose notation. So z is a n dimensional vector. Then here each component is a random variable. So what, it is not a deterministic vector, it is a random vector. So simple, you can say that z is a n dimensional random vector. In short, you can write it n random vector. So this is the concept. So non-word when you are dealing with multiple attribute, so best way or compact way to proceed with the n dimension vector. So if you are having n dimension vector, then anyone would like to comment over that? Definitely z is a variable. It is varying. It is a vector, but each entry is varying. So z is taking various value. So definitely, if it is observing z is observing various value, then it will have one representation. Or that representation we are calling parameter. First one is expectation of z. So we need to find it expectation of z. Then tell me what would be the dimension of expectation of z? Anyone? What would be dimension of expectation of z? Just see z closely. Anyone just try to comment it. What is the dimension of expectation of z? It is the same what z is having dimension. So this we are calling it parameter of this random vector. Silent n might be silent. You can leave it, but by default you need to know that how many components are there. So this one is n dimensional vector. It is what? It is a representation of z, or we can say that it is first order moment, or we can say that it is expectation of z. Now next we will find variance of z. So how we can define variance of z? Remember that here z is a what? Vector. So how you will define variance of this one? Can you define variance? Anyone? Can we define variance of z? Simply variance term would be not enough because z is having n number of components. So here we will get a covariance variance matrix. So the matrix notation is coming, generally we denote it by sigma, or some other notation would be here, and sigma is a specific for covariance matrix for normal distribution. So that's why we can take another notation, vector notation, like d of z. So it would be a matrix. What matrix? What would be dimension of this matrix? It would be n by n matrix. N by n matrix. So those things you will see it here when you are dealing with multiple random variables or n attribute. When you are dealing with n attribute, then you have to know all these from that probability, that n vector. You have to proceed with n vector in together. So either you take this notation, but this notation at the same time you are dealing with n number of observation. So that one is not good while competition. So better notation, compact notation is the n vector notation, or vectorization, what we are calling it. So coming to outline of my today's talk or today's lecture, first I would talk about the derivation of least square estimation of the of a response for a given uh, n observation. Okay, derivation of least square estimation. I am talking about least square estimation of a response. In the last class, I had already told that. So we are having y, we are having, and we are having x1, x2, xn up to xn. So these are attribute which we have already observed. We have observed this. Okay, and from this observation we want to estimate y, or we want to predict y. Our question is, we want to predict y by observing xi's. So how we can do that prediction? That prediction we can do through various estimation approach. So we want to estimate value of y. So one estimate of y is given by regression function that we are calling it conditional expectation of y given x1 up to xl, we can say that. So this is one estimation. So this conditional expectation is estimation of y. Afterward, because this one is not having an explicit form in general, unless the joint distribution of y and x happens to be normal, that time the conditional expectation is having explicit representation. What was that? That one is that it would be linear function of xi. It would be linear function. That means you will have omega 1 not omega 1 times x1. Simply I am saying that it would be a linear function. That means linear combination of these coefficient xn omega 1 times xn. So if provided that these these are jointly coming from normal distribution, coming from normal distribution, that time it will take the conditional expectation will take a linear form. But if suppose y and x those are having different kind of distribution, then this one is not possible. So in that case we do apply some kind of linear approximation of this one, or quadratic approximation, or depends upon data source from where data is coming. We will do a scattering plot, or from there we will try to conclude that what kind of model we want to introduce it here. So simplest one happens to be we are taking a linear model, and this is what this one is giving one estimate of this conditional expectation, this function. It is not giving estimate of y, but it is response, but it is giving estimation of the conditional expectation. And that perspective we are calling this value is the fitted value. Fitted value, whatever value we will get, that would be fitted value of y. It is not estimated value of y, but it is a fitted value of y. Second level of approximation. One level of estimation we are doing here in order to get least square conditional expectation. Then after that we are performing second level of estimation here. This is the second level of estimation that we directly get it from the data. So it depends upon we can go for linear, we can go for quadratic, we can go for cubic, depends upon what situation is there. It's okay. So here I will talk about computation of parameter for this. We will compute these things if possible. If that number of attribute happens to be less, then we can talk about computation. Otherwise, if number of attribute happens to be very large, then computation would be very difficult. So we will go for estimation of the parameter for a multiple univariate linear model. So coming to first part, that derivation of a least square estimation of a multiple univariate linear model, how we can derive that. First target is we need to derive estimate of y, response y. The next task is we have to estimate the given estimator. We have to find approximation of given estimator. So approximation is better word, we can say that. So how we can do this? So consider y is statistically related to some random variables x1 to xn, okay, whose value we have already observed. Okay, after that what we do, we perform least square estimation in order to get one estimate of y, and that one is the conditional expectation and defined as follows. So we are calling it is the what, it is conditional expectation as an estimate of, or we can say that also prediction. It's also predict for any given value of x, it predict of y, what y will happen. So better word, generally people are calling this conditional expectation as a prediction of y. So from that perspective, several times I had told that what is the prediction error. Prediction error is what, it is the difference between response value of response variable and the conditional expectation. Error is very much essential to calculate. You need to know if you want to understand any algorithm, then understanding means you know the computation process of error. So here first level of error, what we are calling it prediction error. Then we will have second level of error that we are calling it residual. Various kind of error would come, total error would come, and it is very much essential to understand all those errors. So this one is the first level error, what we are calling it. So that means anyhow from one technique we come to know one estimation of y, that one is the conditional expectation. And if you see the difference between, if it is not giving the exact value of y, then definitely there is a error. So that error also we denote it by epsilon, notation epsilon. And once I will talk about second level error. What is that? So we are having conditional expectation as a estimator of y. It is one estimator of y. Now if suppose x and y are not having joint distribution as a normal distribution, then definitely it would be not a linear model. It would be any kind of nonlinear function. It may possible. So suppose we are applying some kind of what approximation of this conditional expectation, that definitely that would be what argument would be x and g would have some pattern. Argument is x, and another thing, g is having a modular structure. So remember that x is the argument of this function and g will have a modular structure, whether you want to take a linear model or non-linear model. So modular structure, you can take it in two different way. One, we are calling it parametric approach. That means in simple, we introduce some parameter in order to define that function, or non-parametric approach. Directly we will try to learn the function g. So there are two approaches. So somehow we are getting a modular structure for this function, and through that we are saying that we try to estimate g here. We try to estimate g in order to get a very nearby value of this conditional expectation, and this difference we will call it fitted error. Once you will come with one function which is approximated conditional what expectation, then that one is giving what fitted error. So this one is the second kind of error, fitted error. Okay, so first level of error is prediction error, second level of error is fitted error, and third level of error would come. What is third level of error? Anyhow, indirectly this function g is what giving talking about estimated value or fitted value of y. So fitted, so that's where you can talk about the difference between, definitely g is not estimate of y, g is estimate of conditional expectation, but conditional expectation is estimate of y through least square estimation process. So it can give a value, fitted value for y. So that difference between give name like this way cap, it is we are actually estimating this one. So that's way. So the difference between y minus g of x. What is name of this? Anyone heard this name? Name of this one we will call it residual. Okay, so three type of error, residual error. So three type of error you have already seen while defining all this estimation. So derivation I had already discussed. So this is the derivation, that why we are saying that conditional expectation is the best estimator of y here. So next I will talk about, I told that regarding random vector and its parameter. So suppose we are having n number of attribute or n number of random variable x1 to xn, then equivalently this can be posed as a n dimensional random vector. In simple we can call it n random vector z. So either proceed with this. So it is not a compact way of proceeding with n number of observation or random variable together. So if you're proceeding together, you can put in the compact form as a n random vector, and I have taken here transpose in order to make this one a column vector. Then we have to find its expected value. The expected value can be obtained by uh, taking this expectation operator inside the term of sequence, this finite sequence. So if you take, you can put that expectation inside that. So expectation of x, it is what, or sorry, expectation of z, it would be expectation of z, it is what, it is an n vector again, n random, n fixed vector. This one is an n fixed vector because it is talking about expectation. So in this expectation of z, we can get it by finding the expectation of corresponding random variable, each component, corresponding each component, that x1 x2. So expectation of z is calculated like this way. Again this one is a uh, column vector, n random vector, but in column representation. Now next we have to find the variance. So variance term is not feasible here because we are having n number of component, n number of random variable. So the representation of variance and covariance both will come in together with respect to each component. If you are taking any two random variable, then we are having what, covariance. We are talking about covariability between those two. So that's where covariance is coming. If you are taking any two, better write it xi xj, then you will talk about covariability. And if you observe variability among uh, themselves within, that means xi between the covariance between xi with xi itself, that becomes a variance. So we are having two terms, variance and covariance. So that's why we are representing that variability and covariability in together as a matrix, n by n matrix, or that matrix is also having another name, we are calling it dispersion matrix. And dispersion matrix, generally we are giving a notation d of z, and it contains variance and covariance of all the uh, component, all the n component, and we can see it here like this way. So the various covariance matrix having entries like this way. So here if you observe entries along diagonals, so in entries along diagonal, only variance term we observe. So first diagonal entry will talk about variance of the first component x1, second diagonal entry will talk about variance of the second component x2, and nth this diagonal entry will talk about variance of the nth component xn. And if you go up of diagonal, the off diagonal element are what those are talking about covariance. And one more thing also, you can observe that this matrix is a symmetric matrix. Symmetricity, easily you can observe that. So covariance, if you try to find covariance, it is one kind of metric. So metric always happens to you what symmetric in nature. So whether you go from one direction, one place to another place, or from the same another place to first place, then the distance would be same, metric would be same. So that's why metric is always a symmetric property. So due to that, we know that in this covariance is a symmetric property, this one is symmetric. So both would be what talking about x1 and x2, both involve x1 and x2, so both value would be same. So we can say that this covariance variance matrix is what, it is a symmetric matrix. So you know that in linear algebra you have already seen that. I would like to ask one question. What are the eigenvalue of a symmetric matrix? Can you talk anything about eigenvalue of a symmetric matrix and eigenvector of a symmetric matrix? Anyone? Kalpajit, do you know? Yes, yes, try to answer. Yeah, very nice. Now, do you know anything about that eigenvector, about symmetric matrix? Any properties? Any other would like to answer? Abhinav, what are the property of eigenvector of symmetric matrix? Actually, mutually orthogonal, that one is possible in only one case, when all eigenvalues are different, distinct. Then you will observe that those eigenvector would be mutually perpendicular to each other. Okay, so that orthogonality you can observe. But suppose there is one eigenvalue which is having algebraic multiplicity 2. In that case, with respect to that eigenvalue, you will have more than one eigenvector, and those eigenvector may not be perpendicular to each other. But that eigenvector associated with eigenvalue with algebraic multiplicity 2 may be perpendicular with, definitely it will be perpendicular with other eigenvector associated with other eigenvalues. So directly you want to observe orthogonality between any two eigenvector only in case when you are having two eigenvector and both eigenvector are associated with different eigenvalue, then you will have orthogonality between those. Yeah, nice. And there would be definitely n eigenvector. Also there would be, yeah, that result is fine. You will get real eigenvalues first. The first concept the culprit told, that one is fine. I'm agree with that. Then second answer I got it. There would be n number of eigenvector. That one is also fine. But also one suggestion came that eigenvector would be orthogonal to each other. But in general, that one is not true. It would be orthogonal only in case when uh, all the eigenvalue are distinct. And if one eigenvalue repeats, then you will face problem. In the repetition case, If and that in case of symmetric matrix, always number of eigenvalue, that number of what we call it mutually, simply you can't talk about mutually orthogonal simply you can't talk about. You just suppose take two different eigenvalue, and with respect to those two different eigenvalue you will get different eigenvector, and that time you will talk about orthogonality. And if one eigenvalue vector is associated with the same eigenvalue, then you can't talk about orthogonality. Then what is the technique through which you can convert that into orthogonal? Anyone know that technique? I had given algorithmic approach to uh, proceed with that technique. What is that? Even in case of symmetric matrix, what was that? It is directly derived from orthogonal projection, and the technique is Gram-Smith orthogonalization process. So if you are having a symmetric matrix, then always you can decompose that matrix into orthogonal fashion by applying Gram-Smith orthogonalization process. But if you're, yes, yes, Saurabh, you want to say something? Okay. So actually here, when you are dealing with the multiple attribute, multiple random variable, you need to know all these properties of matrices. So one matrix is symmetric matrix. Now let me go something advanced. Symmetric plus semi-definite, positive semi-definite. Then what would be that matrix? Anyone would like to say that? If you are having a symmetric matrix and which is also positive definite, then what about eigenvectors? Ips. And definitely this second concept I am going to discuss about this various covariance matrix. This various covariance matrix, it can be written as expectation of outer product of this vector z minus z is a what? It is n vector, and expectation of z is also uh, a fixed quantity. It would be a fixed vector, and hence we can say that z minus expectation of z is again a vector. Okay, and this one is what? We are taking a outer product of this vector z minus expectation of z. So when we are defining outer product of a vector, that outer product of a vector is a matrix, because this one is n matrix and this one is n dimensional matrix, and n dimensional vector. So you are taking outer product, so it is defining a n by n matrix. So if you are taking an outer product of any vector, what is the property of that vector? Definitely it would be symmetric. Symmetricity would be clear, because symmetricity I have already expressed this various covariance matrix as an outer product of expectation of outer product of this vector. So definitely it would be symmetric. Apart from symmetric, what other property you will observe? Anyone? So that's why this variance covariance matrix is very special kind of matrix, and that a special matrix is having first property is symmetricity. Now second property from here it will come. So what you do, if you take any outer product of any vector, then that corresponding result would be a matrix, and that matrix would be always positive semi-definite matrix. What is that result? Positive semi-definite matrix. Second, or in short, we are calling it PST. Now, for this variance covariance matrix, we are having two properties: symmetric nature and positive semi-definite nature. So, suppose I am asking one more question. If you are having a matrix which is symmetric and positive definite, then what about eigenvectors of this matrix? Anyone can say that? If you take any two eigenvector of this matrix A, then what would be that? Here you can say that if you take any two eigenvector of matrix A which is symmetric and positive definite, by default it would be orthogonal. So that one is directly coming from a spectral theorem. That is the spectral theorem. So if you are taking a symmetric and positive definite matrix, then that matrix can be written as U transpose sigma times u, or transpose you can take it this side, u into sigma u transpose. So this decomposition we are calling it a spectral decomposition. Right hand side always we can say that what is this, what is the name of this? Have you heard such kind of notation till now? This right hand side notation, it would be always, if you take any entry of this one, it would be always greater than equal to 0. So always from this representation you can say that u times sigma times u transpose would be a positive semi-definite matrix, and hence we can say that A is a positive semi-definite matrix. That one is the reverse. So when it is possible only one case, when A is a symmetric and positive semi-definite matrix, and here if you take any two eigenvector of A, definitely that would be perpendicular to each other. But if you just take any one condition, that if you take symmetric matrix, then definitely there would be two matrix, two eigenvector associated with the same eigen value would be not orthogonal. There you have to apply Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization in order to get orthogonal pattern. Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization. Okay, orthogonalization process. That is through that you get. But if you it happens to be symmetric and positive definite, then always you can get that orthogonal picture. So that is the beauty of this variance covariance matrix. So it is always symmetric and positive definite. So you can talk about orthogonal decomposition of this one. Better call it V sigma B transpose, and V is orthogonal matrix. So if you try to find the inverse of that orthogonal matrix, inverse of orthogonal matrix, just you can get it by transpose. So do transpose and get the inverse easily. So you can easily get that. And why it is positive definite, I have already explained. Because of this representation, it is positive definite. So this verification you can do it by yourself if you are willing to get the representation of positivity or positive semi-definite. I will talk about further the computing process of parameter in a simple, sorry, multiple here. It would be multiple univariate linear model. What is this? So for the simplicity, we are trying to find a linear approximation of this conditional expectation or this regression function. Linear approximation. We are taking a linear function. That means here the what I have told that this sometime I am calling this one is a hypothesis function f of x1, x2, it will go up to xn. So I am taking approximation of this f as a linear function. That means linearity is coming. So this function has been defined by this parameter. Don't say that this function is defined by x1, x2, x3. All these are the argument of this function, and w1, w2, w3 are the parameter which is defining this function. So f is having a parameter, so you can put here w like this way. Okay. So we are taking a linear approximation of this hypothesis function. Now we need to apply expectation both sides. So if you apply expectation both sides, what we will get? We will get a expression through that property of law of iterated expectation. We will get a representation of expectation of y like this way. We will get. Similarly, as there are n number of observations, then these can be arrayed in the matrix form as follows. So this representation, we try to take it like this way. We give a compact representation. How? Taking x1 as a first column, x2 is a second column, and x3 now x1 is the second column. Omega naught is also here. So with respect to this notation, we are taking like this way. One big one notation. one vector notation. Everything is every entry of that one second column is coming with respect to x1, third column is coming with respect to x2. Likewise, it will go nth n plus 1th column, it will come like this way. And if you do a dot product of this with omega, what is omega? Omega is again a column vector with n plus 1 component. It is having member. First entry is omega naught, second entry is omega 1, third entry is omega 2, and like n plus 1 entry would be omega n. So omega is n plus 1 vector. So I'm just giving a compact representation as a dot product of this vector. This here x1 is a distribution. This one I have taken intentionally because we have to put in the same framework what x1, x2, xn are having. So that's why one kept bold one I am taking it. It is talking about one constant vector with every entry is 1. Every entry is 1. So that is the perspective it is giving. So if you try to look further, so it will take a matrix representation. So if you take for all the samples, there would be various sample, various value of y. For each value of y, if you vary it together, then that means if you are taking all value of one vector, all value of x1, all value of x2, all value of xn, that all measured value or sample, what is the sample size? Suppose it might be sample size, also we are taking n sample size, n number of measure we are taking. So in that perspective, this will be converted into x, a matrix, this capital bold X as a matrix times parameter omega. This all the individual parameter has been taken in together, we are getting parameter omega. So equivalently we can write this as just for what computational point of view, we are putting this representation like this way because we want to estimate this conditional expectation. But if you always write this one, it is taking time. So just for simplification, here we are writing it y equal to x times omega plus error. Definitely error would be there. So error, because it is a linear approximation, we are talking about linear approximation of this one. So that's where error definitely would be there. So next question would be here, what is the uh, parameter of error? What is the expectation of error? What is the variance of error? Those we have to calculate it. So here I have further explained that X is a n by n plus 1 matrix where the first column I discussed that it is talking about one vector. Every entry is one, first column. Every entry is one, and epsilon is again n dimensional vector, and it is defined like this way. First epsilon 1 is coming with respect to first sample, epsilon 2 is coming with respect to second sample, likewise, and omega is defined as a n plus 1 column vector. So overall, if you try to see that, it is what? It is product of n by n, n plus 1 matrix with n plus 1 dimension. So so if you do that multiplication, then it would resultant would be, what would be the dimension of this product of matrix with the vector? That would be what it would be n by n. That means it is just complemented with sample size. There is a very good complementation with sample size. So we have to put further condition over this epsilon. What is that? That expectation would be 0. Conditional expectation of epsilon given the those n attribute, it must be 0. So that we will see it here, like here. So the first of the assumption regarding the disturbance, epsilon we are calling it disturbance. That is the disturbance. That means we are going for approximation. That's why we are calling it is a disturbance. First assumption on the distribution is that they have an expected value of 0. That is, we say that expectation of this disturbance epsilon is equal to 0, or individual, if you take individual disturbance error with respect to each sample, then those individual disturbance is also having expectation 0, because we know that from the vector, so it is what, n dimensional vector. So from n dimensional vector, if that one is 0, then component would be also 0. That equality easily we can observe. So both implies to each other. You can both imply. If you take expectation of this disturbance vector equal to 0, it will imply that expectation of epsilon ith member of that disturbance vector, that would be also 0. Next, it is assumed that the disturbances are mutually uncorrelated. That means, and they have a common variance. What if you take any two disturbance, epsilon I and epsilon j, then the corresponding mutually, it would be just try to find the expectation of product of those two, that will be 0. But if you find a expectation of product of the the those disturbance with respect to its sample twice as a product, that I equal to j situation, then it will turn into what? It will turn into expectation of e square I equal to j situation you are taking. And we have already seen that expectation of ei equal to 0. So we can write it like this: expectation of a square of ei minus 0. Okay, so ei is a random variable minus 0. 0 is the expectation of this one. So we can say that it is defining variance of disturbance. I is disturbance, ei variance. So we can say that from here, uh, each any two disturbance, uh, that means related with any two sample, happens to be orthogonal to each other, that means uncorrelated, and variance is what? Sigma square. Now, third assumption is that the matrix X that we have constructed in last slide, the matrix of explanatory variable or attribute is non-stochastic matrix with linearly dependent column. That means this matrix is deterministic in nature. There is no randomness in this matrix. It is deterministic in nature. So that is the assumption. That assumption we are taking. Otherwise, if you take randomness in that matrix, and another time also we will call that matrix data matrix. So if you are putting randomness, then various mm, problem will come there, and you have to control that problem through various that assumption. We need to put further assumption if you are putting randomness, like one of that entry of that data matrix should come from the same distribution or some specific distribution, like normal distribution or binomial distribution or Bernoulli distribution, depends upon what situation is there. So that we can't take a mix-up kind of distribution there in that data matrix. So that further property we need to put it in order to uh, measure the what control the randomness of the matrix. Okay, so better situation, that's why we have taken assumption. This is the first assumption, that expectation of disturbance would be 0. Second assumption, variance of expectation is sigma square, and any two disturbance happens to be uncorrelated or mutually perpendicular. So we can say that. And third one is talking that that data matrix X, it must be non-stochastic with linearly independent column. Column would be linearly independent. Why? There is a meaning of this one. So this linearly independent will talk about unique solution of unique value of that omega, unique estimated value of omega. That's way. So the element X are random variable, definitely as a random variable, which are distributed independently of the random of the element epsilon. This one is directly we can derive it. Both assumption 3 and 4 can be related to each other. Okay, the consequences of either of the 2, 3 or 4, that assumption what we had taken, it leads to the independent nature of or uncorrelation between the attribute X and disturbance epsilon. So always we have to take that when we are defining a linear model like this way. There is a matrix here plus epsilon, then always we see that this disturbance component of disturbance, it would be uncorrelated with this one. Uncorrelation would be there. If correlated, then it would be very difficult to model the problem. So we will talk about so we are having this model y equal to X matrix data matrix time omega plus epsilon. So you want to find the solution of this one. So if you apply least squares approach to find the solution of this one, that means least square approach we can easily find in linear algebra. I had already discussed also in very first class. I had discussed how to find a solution of a linear system by least square approach. uh, that this pseudo inverse will come times this one, because this one is, because error term is coming, and in that perspective we say that y equal to x minus y equal to x times w. It is not a consistent system. If it is not a consistent system, then we can't get exact solution. So we have to talk about approximate solution. That approximate solution is given by one technique through least square estimation. And if you try to find it, so what you do, you multiply both sides of this equation by the corresponding data matrix, then you are getting a normal equation. And normal equation is what? Derivation. If you talk about normal equation, can be derived by considering a error function. Consider an error function like this way. This is the error difference between y minus matrix times delta, and take a square of this. Definitely take quadratic loss type things, and this considered as an objective function. Definitely it is a function of w, and after that if you so call it some function h of w, and if you find the gradient, definitely it is a function of n variable. W is what? N dimensional vector, function of n variable. So if you are willing to find optimum value of this one, so what you have to do, you have to find the gradient and equate to 0. If you take gradient and equate to 0, then that equation you will get how? That equation would be, you will get that one is similar to multiply data matrix, transpose of data matrix both side of this linear equation, because this one is inconsistent because of this error term. So we are multiplying both side with x transpose, then we are getting it x transpose x w. Now this one is what? It is just simplification of gradient of h equal to 0. You can get it from here, and it is giving what? Optimal condition. It is coming with respect to optimal condition, and this one is a what? It is a consistent system. You can solve it, and solution of this one is, we can get it like this way, and that's way omega cap, it is the least square estimator of omega, what we got, and it is an unbiased estimate of omega. Why? If you try to find mean of this one, mean of this one would be expected, that means expectation of this one would be equal to the true value of omega. So that's why we are saying that it is one unbiased estimate. Okay, other thing we will discuss in next class, and I think